Resigning Marcus Davenport to the Detroit Lions. All right. To me personally, I think it makes a lot of sense to bring Marcus Davenport back. And why would I say that? Well, I think we can get him super cheap. I think that his contract can be incentive laden. And I don't think he has the pressure of being a starter this year. Now, I think he's a great fill-in. I think he's great if a starter does go down. But I think we need to address this through either free agency with a free, or not a free, but a cheaper free agent, or through the draft. And let's get our other end of the future. Let's have some bookends and we can have him for a while on the cheap. But in the meantime, let's have someone that can fill in if that starter gets hurt. And that is Marcus Davenport. And that's exactly what I think the Detroit Lions should sign him for. Now, on the opposite side of that coin, Marcus Davenport gets hurt every single season. It seems he can never make it through an entire season with any team. He was the 14th overall pick in the first round. And this guy is going to be 29 years old in September. His original contract for 1 year with the Detroit Lions was $6.5 million with $3 million guaranteed and an average of $6.5 million. In 2025, Marcus Davenport will earn an incentive bonus of $250,000 while carrying a cap hit of $2.5 million and a dead cap value of $2.29, so $2.3 million. His contract for last year was very incentive laden. So he had a per game bonus of $50,000 per game. If he played all 17 games, it would have came out to $850,000. And then in 2025, his contract automatically voids 5 days after the 2024 Super Bowl. So that would be today or tomorrow, very soon, coming up. So 40% of playing time, he would get $250,000. If he played 50% of snaps, he would get $250,000. That's 60%, $500,000, 70%, another $500,000, and at 80%, another $500,000. And then he had sack incentives. If he got 6 sacks, he got $500,000. 8 sacks, he got $500,000. And 10 or more sacks, he got another $500,000. And then if he made the Pro Bowl, he got $500,000. So if we can give him that sort of contract, where we're not necessarily kicking a whole bunch of stuff down the road, but a nice small contract with a small cap hit, I think he would fit perfect back into the Detroit Lions as a spot starter, role player, and not necessarily the full-time starter. Let me know in the chat where you guys think. Do you think we should re-sign Marcus Davenport, or should we just let him walk in free agency?
Okay, so here's my response to that. You know that I'm a giant Marcus Davenport supporter, and I'm going to say a few things here. One, I think that there is a high likelihood that he could become a Jet, and I say that because Aaron Glenn was the biggest reason why Marcus Davenport came to Detroit, and I think that there is a high that he could find a cheap contract with the Jets and join a rebuilding situation. However, I do believe Marcus Davenport was going to have a successful season. And I know that there's some people out there that believe anybody on the opposite side of Aiden has to be a $35 million guy, has to get 15 sacks, has to have 100 pressures. Look, nobody does that in the NFL. There's not one other team out there. Matter of fact, when we look at pressures, a rookie, edge, Jared Verse had the most, but guess who had the second most? I mean, guess who had, I guess, more of the least in the NFL this year? Edge rushers. But defensive tackles, Jalen Carter, second-year player, had the second most pressures. Why is it that I call for interior defensive linemen? It's because of that reason right there. That is a large reason why the Eagles had an amazing season. But going back to Marcus Davenport, look, he started off hot. And I'm going to read this by Justin Rogers because it seems like a lot of people disagree with me when they think that Marcus Davenport was just injured and was oft injured, and it was his fault that he was injured. It wasn't. It wasn't his fault that he was injured. And I put out the video. I shared it again yesterday in the chat. Go watch the Davenport video that I put together showing his injury, because this was not Marcus Davenport just getting injured. This was Marcus Davenport intentionally getting injured. And I just came across this last night when he said yesterday he was going to talk about Davenport. Even Justin Rogers, put that together. And he said, defensive end Marcus Davenport, he's eligible to return November 3rd or since November 3rd of last year. He suffered a season-ending triceps injury when his left arm was chopped by Arizona Cardinals offensive lineman in the team's Week 3 matchup. Now, when you go watch the video, you'll see that not only was it chopped, but it was twisted and turned and pulled at the same time. That is not a natural offensive lineman move. You know, a two-hand chop, you know, a chop and move, whatever, a chop and slide, whatever they're going to do, that's a normal move. But this was an intent to injure move. Davenport was having his way with Paris Johnson. Paris Johnson didn't like it. And every snap that I watched of Marcus Davenport, it seemed like he was making a turn in his career. He did look healthy. He was able to crush the can, as Aaron Glenn and Eric just pointed out. He is a very reliable edge setter. And when you're looking for an opposite of Aiden, you're not looking for someone to mimic what Aiden does. That is a huge misconception amongst fans. If you want to go NASCAR, right, you just need speed ends, great. Different package altogether. But when you look at a 4-3 base defense, they typically do not have two defensive ends that are the same. You have one that is a speed end and you have one that is an edge setter. You need him to set the edge so the ball goes towards your better defensive end and your better defensive tackle, Ali McNeil and Aiden Hutchinson. That is what it's designed to do. If you can set the edge, which is what we're looking for in this draft, somebody that can set the edge, they can do plenty of work and help with production and shifting the production to the other side. The whole scheme in football, the whole reason why you play defensive end is to shut down your end. You want to lock up the outside. You don't allow anything to go to the outside. You force it to the inside. My case point, go watch the Eagles Super Bowl. They set the edge. They turned Mahomes inside. He ran through the center of the offense, and then that's where the interior defensive tackles and Josh Sweat coming from the other side were able to corral him and put him down or force bad throws. And I've been saying it all year long. Vindication 101 again. Flip the W, crash the end, force them inside. It's exactly what you're taught to do at every level of football. You are not taught to just run wild off the end and to crash down, you know, and get out of the play, because that's what happens quite often for a lot of defensive ends that are just trying to get sacks. It works against you. But Davenport, look, signed last season. I think you went over this. It was for a 1 year, $6.5 million. And because of the injury, you know, I think a slight decrease in his market value is probably attainable. But if Detroit were to bring him back, I am predicting a 1 year deal with a lower base salary. I think it makes sense. I think it, like you said, to be highly incentivized and based around playing time and in his production to a degree, because Marcus Davenport has never been a huge production guy. When I look at his stats, his 20, let's see, let me wind it back. His 2018 season, he had 4.5. 2019, he had 6. 2020, 1.5. 21, he had 9. And then he was injured pretty badly. He had half a sack in 22. He had 2 sacks in 23. And he had half a sack in basically 2 games in 2024. But to your point too, Eric, a 14.3% pass rush win rate, that's pretty damn good. That's really good. So it's not that Davenport wasn't contributing. It's not that Davenport wasn't producing. He was. There's a reason why Aiden had 5.5 sacks in some of these games or 3 sacks in some of these games. It's because the other side was doing his job. It's also because Aiden was going up against 3rd and 4th string offensive tackles and guards. But the other side was doing their job. So I do like Davenport to come back. I think that it is a good move. And again, I don't think it is a move to solidify that side. I think it's a move to stack depth. Remember, we still have Josh Paschal. And Josh Paschal also played a role on defensive end this season that he didn't normally play, and he also set the edge pretty well. Again, he didn't have a ton of production with sacks. He just needs to set the edge. So now if we have Josh Paschal and Davenport rotating in at that end, and Zadarius Smith, by the way, and Aiden Hutchinson, those 4 guys, that creates a very good roster, number 1. Number 2, you then address it in the draft. You bring in a young pup early that can learn from all 4 of these guys that can be the next up-and-coming edge of 2025 or 2026. More than likely 2026, he'll get his shot at being a starter. But having a good rotation and having all of these guys on your team helps protect against something else too, and that's injuries, right? We need depth of good guys. Everyone cries and says, well, man, we didn't have anybody opposite of Aiden that was working, and, you know, when's Brad going to address it? Brad, you know, it's his fault, and he didn't do anything. And look, you have those 4 guys. That is a great foundation. And you bring in a rookie, and now you have 5 defensive ends. Again, nobody has a 6th and a 7th. Nobody. There's only 53 spots on a roster. If you lose 5 defensive ends, I'm sorry, there's nothing else that could have been done. There's nothing. Matter of fact, if you lose 4, typically nothing can be done. Better yet, if you lose 1, you're usually in a hole. So quit blaming Brad. Davenport should come back. I just don't know that he doesn't become a Jet before the Lions bring him back. And I'm not sure on the Jets. I'm not sure on the Jets cap and draft. And now that they're releasing Aaron Rodgers, what that looks like for them. But they could be players for the Davenport lottery coming in free agency.
You can do it!